one critical element. It's not the only one. These are, in a way, overdetermined transformations. There are multiple factors coming together. But if I wanted to isolate one element, it is the shift from mass consumption, where every household's income matters as consumers, to the system. In other words, the systems of power, let's say, to something else, to something that I call an extractive economy.
It has just been announced that we will be spending almost $700 billion on our military and defense. Our military will soon be the strongest it has ever been.
Immigration and refugees in Europe. I think that the language, the categories of the immigrant, the refugee, are not enough to understand what is really going on. And if we stay focused on those subjects, the immigrant, that we are not going to find a solution. So I think that what we're seeing is, the most extreme moment of a much larger history that is emergent, that is going to grow, it's not, which with war takes its most extreme and visible form as loss of habitat, but actually it takes many, many, many different forms across the world of a loss of habitat that can be due to desertification, rising waters, land grabs, massive expansion of mining, development of plantation agriculture, and destruction of smallholder. So all of that comes together, and it keeps shrinking the habitat for people.
The values, the systems and alliances that prevented conflict and tilted the world toward freedom since World War II. International criminal networks traffic drugs, weapons, people, forced dislocation and mass migration, threaten our borders, and new forms of aggression exploit technology to menace our citizens. To put it simply, we meet at a time of both immense promise and great peril. It is entirely up to us whether we lift the world to new heights or let it fall into a valley of disrepair. We have it in our power, should we so choose, to lift millions from poverty, to help our citizens realize their dreams, and to ensure that new generations of children are raised free from violence, hatred, and fear.
Finance, which is radically different from traditional banking, finance is a key capability enacting this extractive economy. I say finance is extractive. Unlike the mass consumer firms, which want more and more consumers, finance moves in, extracts what it needs, financializes it so it can circulate and make, capital of a different sort. And it leaves behind a little bit of destruction, or a lot of destruction, and doesn't care.
In America, the people govern, the people rule, and the people are sovereign. I was elected not to take power, but to give power to the American people where it belongs. In foreign affairs, we are renewing this founding principle of sovereignty. Our government's first duty is to its people, to our citizens, to serve their needs, to ensure their safety, to preserve their rights, and to defend their values. All responsible leaders have an obligation to serve their own citizens, and the nation-state remains the best vehicle for elevating the human condition. Making a better life for our people also requires us to work together in close harmony and unity to create a more safe and peaceful future for all people. The United States will forever be a great friend to the world, and especially to its allies. But we can no longer be taken advantage of or enter into a one-sided deal where the United States gets nothing in return. As long as I hold this office, I will defend America's interests above all else. But in fulfilling our obligations to our own nations, we also realize that it's in everyone's interest to seek a future where all nations can be sovereign, prosperous, and secure. From the beaches of Europe to the deserts of the Middle East to the jungles of Asia. It is an eternal credit to the American character that even after we and our allies emerged victorious from the bloodiest war in history, we did not seek territorial expansion or attempt to oppose and impose our way of life on others.
And doesn't care. So it's the opposite of the mass consumption sector, which want to make sure that the sons and daughters can also spend money. And so today, mass consumption is still there, but it's not the dominant sector. The dominant sector is truly extractive. Think of mining, think of land grabs, all these major components of today's global economy. They are extractive. They extract and leave behind destruction.
We cannot let a murderous regime continue these destabilizing activities while building dangerous missiles, and we cannot abide by an agreement if it provides cover for the eventual construction of a nuclear program. We saw it in the assassination of the dictator's brother using banned nerve agents in an international airport. We know it kidnapped a sweet 13-year-old Japanese girl from a beach in her own country to enslave her as a language tutor for North Korea's spies. If this is not twisted enough, now North Korea's reckless pursuit of nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles threatens the entire world with unthinkable loss of human life. It is an outrage that some nations would not only trade with such a region, but would arm, supply, and financially support a country that imperils the world with nuclear conflict. No nation on earth has an interest in seeing this band of criminals arm itself with nuclear weapons and missiles. The United States has great strength and patience, but if it is forced to defend itself or its allies, we will have no choice but to totally destroy North Korea.
So the first step is going to the cities of slums. But that's not going to be enough. We already have unmanageable size cities. So we are really confronting a much deeper problem than what the language of an immigrant and refugee crisis suggests, which is deep enough, but it just won't help us. I think we need to look at where all these people are coming from. We are dealing with something that is an assemblage of elements, where the super rich and the financiers and all of that, they're just one element. So the challenge is not to just get rid. We could shoot down all the super rich. We would not necessarily have solved the problem. And we all know of rich people who have said, I'm making much more money than I ever thought I would. And frankly, I'm not asking for all this money, but it just comes up. Rather than going that way, it goes up. So we're dealing with systemic trends. Systemic trends are a different kind of enemy from individuals who are corrupt and who are destroying a village or a town,
Innocent people. The United States and our allies are working together throughout the Middle East to crush the loser terrorists and stop the reemergence of safe havens they use to launch attacks on all of our people. Last month, I announced a new strategy for victory in the fight against this evil in Afghanistan.
One lesson that I have learned after I've been an activist for 30 years, is that we're not going to bring finance down. Finance will bring itself down. We just have to work at creating spaces, the hard work of making spaces in kinds of different situations. Inside institutions, but also in terms of the neighborhoods, very practical and more conceptual or political discourse kind of spaces, to create narratives that explain, okay, what can we do? Because the system, the big corporations, we couldn't bring them down, but they do bring themselves down, and so that's an important data. So I who am global, I've gone back to some zone where I say, all neighborhoods, localities, I mean modest places, I'm not interested in the rich, that is not my concern. We should begin to relocalize, whatever we can relocalize. Out with all franchises, no Starbucks, but a local person making that. Because the problem with modest neighborhoods is that the little consumption capacity that they have, the money that they spend, leaves the neighborhood. It should recirculate. Now, I see that as not just a little economic intervention, but a political economic step. Out of that can come out politics. I think neighborhoods that are functional neighborhoods should adopt alternative currencies for everything they do. But avoid the credit card system, avoid loans. Just they can serve as exchanges too. So begin to work at all levels. And I say that also because the majority of people, also in our rich countries, are not having good lives. Too many are unemployed. So I say, whatever the talent,
someone help
you
me?
can either do barter or you can have a local currency.
Anybody would like to help
Begin
me?
to work at
Thank you.
building up.
Is there anything to do?
Local.
Can you hold that part? We fold the paper in half. Anybody want to help me? Yes. Thank you. Would you help me to take the tape off? Can I have another person help me? Thank you. Could you help me to press the paper? Thank you. Can I have another person to help me? Thank you. Thank you. Sure is good. Can you help me to fold the paper into another half?
Okay.
Yes. Don't leave. Can you help me to fold the paper again into a triangle until here, from that corner? Yes, thank you.
To the middle corner?
Yes, to the middle point. Can someone help me to do the other side the same thing? Thank you. Can you stay? Help me to fold this side. That's no problem. And together we flip it. Like this. Can someone help us? Can someone help? Thank you. Can you help me again to fold this? fold in half into that direction. Like only one piece. Do it on the other side, the same thing. Okay, I need two persons to help me. Okay. Can you hold this side? And you the same. Yes. Can you open it? And can you both open it to opposite direction? Let's do it again. Pull it to opposite direction. Yes. No problem, let's do it again. Perfect. Hold it. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for your help. Everyone is welcome to step into the boat. And thank you for coming. Have a nice evening.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kuan. Please go back to the foyer.